Bienvenidas, bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio de este podcast de Alquimia Somática. Y hoy estoy muy contenta, estoy súper emocionada por varios motivos. El primero es porque este es el primer podcast que hacemos en vídeo y que vamos a compartir en nuestro canal de YouTube. Y segundo, y no sé si me emociona más, porque tengo el absoluto privilegio de entrevistar a la doctora Tayria Ward. Tayria es doctora en psicología profunda, que en esencia es la corriente psicológica fundada por Jung, que trabaja con el inconsciente, con los sueños, con los arquetipos, con los símbolos, con los complejos, con todo lo que mueve a la persona desde debajo de la consciencia, desde el inconsciente. Ella es analista de sueños, es una estudiosa de lo que ella llama la mente indígena y durante más de 30 años ha estado profundizando en este inconsciente. Es una de las voces más sabias y más necesarias que conozco en el campo de la psicología profunda y de lo sagrado femenino. Pero más allá de sus títulos y de sus credenciales, que son muchas, Tayria es alguien que ha dedicado su vida entera a escuchar los sueños, a escuchar la naturaleza, a escuchar lo invisible. Lleva casi 50 años registrando sus propios sueños cada noche y ha ayudado a miles de personas a descifrar el lenguaje más antiguo que existe, que es el lenguaje del inconsciente. Tayria y yo nos conocimos en Egipto hace un par de meses en un viaje que nunca voy a olvidar. Y desde el momento en que comenzamos a hablar y empezamos a compartir, supe que este día, este episodio, esta conversación tenía que llegar y así ha sido. Hoy vamos a hablar de lo que se pierde cuando una mujer pierde contacto con su instinto, de la mente domesticada, de la mente indígena, de los sueños como portal a una inteligencia de 2 millones de años, del divino femenino, de cómo se vuelve a casa. Algo importante, vais a ver que la entrevista está en inglés, pero actualmente YouTube tiene una función para traducir de forma simultánea el idioma que queráis. Para ello, lo único que tenéis que hacer es ir a los ajustes del vídeo, el icono de la rueda en la parte inferior derecha del reproductor, hacer clic en subtítulos y seleccionar el idioma que queráis. Y YouTube automáticamente en tiempo real a cambiar la conversación al idioma que le hayáis seleccionado. Os dejo con esta fuente de sabiduría en forma de mujer, que la disfrutéis y no dejéis de compartir en comentarios todo lo que os haya atravesado después de escucharla. Nos vemos. Tyria, I'm so happy. I'm so happy that we are here today together. I have so many questions to ask you, really. And I feel so honored that you are today with us.
Well, I
I'm
feel
honored.
so honored to be with you and your audience. This is a great honor, the invitation. So thank you, Lorena. Thank
Thank you,
you.
thank you. Thank you so much for coming. So, we met in Egypt on a trip I will never forget. I remember the exact moment, Jocelyn introduced you to the group, and you were talking about what you do, and I was immediately fascinated.
Oh,
And it kept like growing in conversations on the bus. Do you remember our conversations on the bus?
oh,
In
absolutely.
the Yeah, and in the incredible synchronicities we experienced together. It
Hmm.
was truly, truly profound and inspiring, and everything you brought to that journey also. And I want to start from here. So, you've spent like 50 years listening to what speaks in the dark. Can we say it like this? In
Sure.
dreams, in nature, in the invisible. What it is that is trying to be heard right now? What do you think it is trying to be heard right now in this moment in history through the women who come to you?
Through the women specifically?
Yeah, you know why?
Okay.
Because I almost work with women, and I want to know
Hmm.
what is going on in the feminine psyche, and also in the world psyche, in the feminine world psyche. But whatever you want, you can approach it
No, I'm just
however you want.
trying to hone in on your question. It's a beautiful question and it's a beautiful contemplation, because I feel like the voice of the feminine is finally getting the authority and the power and the attention that it needs, and it's been repressed and suppressed for, as we know, thousands of years, um, through the course of history. And it's a tragic era when the voice of the feminine has not been acknowledged, even in our own psyches as women. That we somehow were so oppressed that we didn't even realize we were oppressed for all these thousands of years. But it's not working anymore. It's not happening anymore. It feels like women are waking up. I would imagine your community is aware of the Me Too movement. I don't think that's just a United States thing, right? Yeah. Is it? But
No,
anyway,
no, 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 no. It got everywhere in the world.
it's when women suddenly just found their voice and spoke up for the ways that they were being oppressed and mistreated and dismissed and devalued. And it just started, it started with one little thing, and then it just went on and on and on and on. And now it seems to be that, um, that I think a lot of men are on board with this. They're like, yes, they really understand the value of not only women themselves, but their own feminine instincts, their own feminine self. And I think it's a growing movement that is like coming, as you say, from that deep unconscious realm. It's just time. This is the era right now when many of the prophecies that have been spoken are, the Mayan prophecy, the eagle condor prophecy, many of the ancient prophecies pointed to exactly this time, exactly this era that we're in, for the world to shift consciousness into the next sort of dimension of consciousness. And women are, I think, leading the charge on all of that. And so this is the time, and it's unstoppable. And I don't think it can be stopped. And I don't- uh, you know, I feel sorry for, those who try to stop it because they're not winning. It's not going to happen. It's happening now, that this transformation, and it's going to be an era, I think, of being in touch with that inner realm, that you were mentioning. I love how you put it, that sort of dark realm of the invisible, the instincts, the intuitions, our dreams, are ways of knowing that are other than just what the rational mind, that one side of the brain is good at. There's this whole other side of the brain that has been repressed and devalued. It's waking up now, and it's not going to have it anymore. So I feel like I'm hearing it uh, from all of my clients, friends, associates, everyone, that this is just an unstoppable movement. And and like I said, male and female are all excited about it and acknowledging it. The ones that aren't excited about it and are acknowledging are the ones that are sort of threatened because it's their old structures are not going to suffice anymore. And so if they're attached to that and can't wake up, then it's this time of suffering for them. Yeah.
And do you see it showing up in the dreams in any kind of symbol or archetype, or I don't know, how this ancient feminine knowledge is like popping up in this unconscious dream realm?
It happens all the time, I would say. I mean, I have I'm just going back to the last 2 or 3 days because those are what are freshest in my mind. But the mother of a young man who's in trouble, he's been in jail now, but she keeps having these dreams where she can see things that nobody else can see. She can see this light that nobody else can see. She can see invisible things that nobody else can see. They're very visible to her, but she starts to realize that she can see things that nobody else can see. And her son is having dreams where he is seeing that his mother sees things that nobody else can see, and he's starting to see them too. So
Wow.
something in his own sort of a crisis is waking up this side of his brain where he's really in touch with that. And I will say, just I think it was yesterday, maybe yesterday or the day before, very recent. I I woke up from a dream where I was with lots of women in my dream all night long. You know how those dreams go. It's good. They go on all night long. And I'm with women in all these various kind of scenarios, where we're in some kind of circle, we're dancing, we're standing in line for something and then just chatting along the way and laughing. We're very serious about something and helping. So, it's like women, women, women all through my dream. And when I woke up, I didn't make that much of it. This is what I always want to tell people about your dreams. We tend to wake up and think they're nothing, not anything, and then you start to find out, no dream is nothing. It's something. And the thing that alerted me, before I had even written down my dreams, I do write my dreams down every time I have one. Before I'd even written it down, I have a little dream group that we met. We used to meet 2 or 3 years ago. um, and we've stayed in touch ever since. And so I got a message from one of my friends on this dream group that she wanted to tell us this dream that she had of all these women doing these rituals. They were painting each other's eyes. They were in this deep cave in the earth. I mean, so many things about the dream it was all women's rituals. And they were very empowering kind of rituals. They knew that something major was happening now to the feminine in her dream. And then the other one of the other members said that responded on this thread that she was just reading a book about a shaman. She's German, and so this book is in German. She didn't name the shaman, but she said she said that this shaman, she's been really studying his work, and he's talking all about women, how women are going to change everything, and it's the power of women that need to be. So here I am waking up from this dream all about women, hearing about my friend who just had a dream all about women. And then this other friend who's studying this shaman who's talking all about women. And then I started to have lunch, Lorena. And sometimes I turn on the news for like 20 minutes while I have my lunch between clients, right? There were like 3 stories in a row all about women finding their voice. There are a couple of congressmen who are being, they're being exposed for their abuse of women. There was, gosh, what else was it? There was something else, and it was a story all about women. And then there was another image that came up of uh, the peace talks between Lebanon and Israel. And there was a picture of all the people in the peace talks that were going into the room to have the peace talks. There were 5 men and 1 woman, and she was dressed like a man. She was in a suit and a tie. And I thought, that is what is wrong with the world. It's 5 men making these peace talks, and 1 woman who is somehow having to pretend to be a man. Who
Wow.
knows? Hopefully her feminine instincts are more at play than her clothes seem to suggest. But, it's like, this is what's wrong with the world. This is why these peace talks are not working. They're just
Mm,
bombing each other. That's a
mm,
whole masculine domination kind of paradigm. Women aren't
absolutely.
about that.
No,
Nothing about that.
no, no.
And I'm reminded of what the Dalai Lama said. He said, Western women are going to change the world.
Yeah.
He said
Yeah.
it's going to be Western women. So here we are, and I think that's the Western woman in the great global collective psyche, that is going to be the change. So, yes, I'm hearing this, and it's the synchronicities. I kind of like to point that out. It's like you wake up from a dream, and then you hear another dream, and then you read a thing in the newspaper, and then you see something there. And it's when it's awakening to the whole field, the dreamtime field of consciousness then
Yeah.
is awakening, and you realize this isn't just local in me. This is
Yeah.
something global that I am tuned into, that I'm part of. But it's not just me, my own personal story, my own personal psyche. It all fits into my personal story and psyche, but I think we need to know that the dreams are pointing out this field of consciousness that we're all part of, and that we can affect, through our attention to it, through our verbalization of it, through our care for it, that we affect the field of consciousness.
Yeah. I will ask you some more about this.
Okay.
later on because yeah, I have so many questions for you. Oh my gosh.
Okay, I'll
We're
try to
gonna
be
spend
brief in
the
my
next
answers.
8 hours together today.
Okay.
So, we are living in a civilization that has systematically silenced the oldest intelligence we have.
Yes.
What have we lost, really lost, by not listening?
That's a really good question. And the first thing that comes to me is we've lost ourselves because that's our origin of consciousness. This ancient consciousness, um, which, in some of the mystic traditions, they call the ground of being. In Carl Jung's work, he called it the unus mundus. Um, it's that thonic realm where spirit in matter is alive, that has been, through scientific materialism, has been completely forgotten, cut off, severed, right? That's the right gesture for that. Yeah. We just cut it off and stopped listening.
Mm.
Um, and it's those deep origins in consciousness that make us who we are. And now we have forgotten ourselves because we have gone into this era of forgetting. And it's the indigenous people who remember, who know. And the influence of the patriarchal cultures that took over the indigenous people and the indigenous mind eradicated even their own connection to it. They had to live in a way that was not coherent or consistent with their own ways of knowing and being. And it's been quite a challenge for them to stay in touch with that. And I think for all of us to awaken to our own indigenous mind, because all of us lived up until a few thousand years ago, up into the recent era, we all lived in an indigenous way. We all had that deep connection to consciousness and the invisible realms and the dream time realms. And the dreams aren't having it. The dreams are never going to lie to you. They're never going to support your ego. And that's why people don't like them, I think. They don't listen to them because they're not generally supporting your ego. If you want to be conscious, they're your friend.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
want to
yeah.
stay unconscious, people dismiss them.
Oh, absolutely. And there's so many people that say, no, I never dream of anything. What do you think about that? Oh, I dream with my mom or my last partner, but it's never them. It's always about us, right?
Right. It's that's true at one level of the sort of analysis of dreams, that every person or symbol in the dream is part of us that's trying to communicate with us, that it's all parts of the self. But it's all parts of the world too. They're archetypes in the world, the mom or the first boyfriend or the whatever. Those are archetypes in the world as well as in our own personal life. So we kind of can look at them at all the different levels of the symbology of the dream. I would say people who don't remember their dreams are, an affliction that a lot of us have. It's sometimes I just go night after night and I can't pull them back. So it's not anything to feel discouraged about. It's something to keep sort of working with it and working with the intention of it. Um, but it's a very common experience. But I also tell people, just because you're not remembering your dreams of the night doesn't mean you're not dreaming. There is a
Exactly.
dreaming dimension of the self where the whole world is symbolically working at the dreaming level. And we can interpret our experiences in life, through the archetypes and through the dreamtime consciousness as our waking life, as well as our dreaming life. So once you start waking up to that dreamtime dimension of who we are, which some of the indigenous elders would say that's the fifth dimension, that is the dreamtime dimension, and it's part of who we are now. It's not something in the future. It's not something we're growing into. It's something that's present now and always has been. We're just remembering it now. But once you wake up to that, you're dreaming all the time, whether you're dreaming in the night or not. But the dreams of the night have a special potency. So I would really recommend people make an effort to remember them when they wake up in the morning. Just like really focus on where you have been instead of what you're going to do next. So that happens. But it's like a, uh, a skill that can be learned more and more once you decide it's important. I think people just dismiss them because nobody ever taught them they were important.
Yeah. You know what? When I'm more conscious in my daily life, I mean, if I'm conscious every day of how am I being, where am I talking from, how am I feeling, those nights I have the bigger dreams.
Mm,
It's like it's like a continuum, you know? It's like a continuum of my day consciousness going into my night consciousness or whatever. And also I can feel for the last weeks or the past months that I'm not just getting my own dreams. It's like I'm channeling or well not channeling. Maybe I'm contacting. I'm dreaming the collective dream also. I'm like decoding something in this field is something like
right.
this.
Yeah. I think you're very good at that, Lorena. From some of the conversations we've had, I think you're very tuned into decoding that field and being in touch with it. And it can speak to you because you so understand or believe in it, or it's like turning your radio signals on. And if your radio's turned off, you don't hear it, right?
Yeah.
You don't hear the signals coming in if your radio's turned off. If you turn on your inner radio, you start to get it waking and sleeping. And I feel like you have your radio on. You're listening.
I feel it. I feel it too, you know. Sometimes there's so much noise also.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, I want to ask you because I saw this in your webpage.
Okay.
Jung spoke of the 2 million-year-old intelligence that lives inside all of us, and this idea that our limbic brain carries this ancestral memory going back to the very beginning of our species. And as women, we carry that same archive. Um, what does it mean that we've been living almost entirely from this part of our brain, the neocortex, from language, logic, performance, while this ancient, vast intelligence sits dormant underneath?
It's a style of thinking that we have developed really only after about the last 5 or 6 thousand, or excuse me, 5 or 6 thousand years, but yes, but 5 or 600 years, really. In like at the 16th century, we just developed rationalism and scientific materialism and all of that. And it's like then the left brain way of thinking dominated the world, and the right way of thinking became marginalized. Whatever art and poetry and all of that was, it was relegated to something unnecessary, something that doesn't, that only sort of dreamers and mystics care about, but not the dominant world culture. So we built this world on, yeah, the neocortex, and not being in touch with the older aspect of the brain and the right brain, that where all of this wisdom and power is located. But if you're not listening to it, like you've turned off that radio, we're not getting the signals. We're not learning the codes. We don't even know it's there. We've just like cut it off. So, it's that Jung said, that's probably what you saw on my webpage, was quoting him saying, when you have a problem, when you go to sleep at night, ask your 2 million-year-old self to comment on your problem.
Wow, wow, that's profound.
Isn't it? And it's that
Mm,
self that the dreams are in touch with.
yeah.
And if we listen to them at that level and respect them at that level, even no matter how sort of simple and ridiculous seeming they might be, they're speaking a symbolic language. Once you get the symbolic language, it's like the myths and stories of ancient times. Your dreams are speaking in myth and story. but they have just eternal, invaluable information and guidance and messaging and meaning. And it's that meaning, when you find it, that transforms consciousness. Once you find it, it transforms your consciousness. It changes the structure of your brain, literally. So
Wow. Yeah, this is, it's like I, I I'm just feeling things. It's like when I'm listening to you and it's like the radio doesn't
yeah,
stop. It's like wow, like streams of things of ancient information are coming back. Maybe that's why we are here today.
right.
Maybe that's why. I don't know. We'll see. Huh.
I love that
Wow.
you're tuned into that 2 million-year-old self and the ancient brain, because that's what we need to recover our connection to. Um, that's where the origins of consciousness are. Um, that's where we know that we come from the stars, that all of it.
Absolutely. And also if this limbic brain holds that 2 million year memory, all everything, all this anxiety, depression, disconnection, those actually symptoms of separation from that intelligence, right? Is the body trying to get our attention to this?
I love that insight. That's a beautiful insight. I think a lot of the anxiety and depression is because we're so cut off from that. And when we plug back into that, when we open that channel, that artery of energy, it drives us in these in very still, calm ways. It's calming, even as it's energizing and awakening. It's it can be like thunder and lightning, but it's still, waking us up to this calmness. It's the chatter of anxiety that is disconnected from that.
It's like this solid presence, the rooted presence in more parts of you. I don't know how to, but it's more like a somatic feeling. I can't find words to explain it, but I think I know what you're trying to say. I think I feel it. Yeah.
Right. It's that it's that quiet place inside. That's where the ancient brain is. It's quiet. It's really quiet. If we get into that quiet place, that's where all knowing is. The sort of static and chatter and electricity is calmed, and we can really hear ourselves and the way things are. And out of that place, we have guidance. We know how to make decisions better. We know who we are. We know what our strengths are. We know what we're in touch with.
Where we
I
are
have
coming from.
a couple of stories. One is when Jung went to Africa, he was very curious to hear the dreams of the shamans that he was meeting there. He wanted to hear their dreams. And when he asked one of them, this story just kills me. He asked one of them, the shaman that he was talking to, about his dreams, and the shaman started to cry. And he said, we used to conduct all of our life by the dreaming. We'd get up every day and listen to the dreaming, and that's how we knew how to conduct our life. Once the white man came, we stopped dreaming because the white man knew better. And so it's like when that consciousness comes in, it shuts down even their connection to their dreams. It's like the white mans are building these structures and doing these things and creating these operations, and they're trying to think like that, and then they lose contact. And that and I read another story of some indigenous people that had been kidnapped and were taken on a ship. And they always, when they were out at sea at night, even if it was night and even if it was the day and they couldn't see the stars, they could still direct the ship by the stars because they knew where the stars were. right? They didn't need they didn't need to be able to see the stars to know where they were. They had the consciousness connection to them. But then the white men that had kidnapped them had this little thing called a compass. And that's how they knew, where north and south and east and west were. So they were looking at this little device. And because they started using that device with the white men, they lost their own intent, they lost their own connection, and then they couldn't guide by their own. It's like that's how, as strong as it is, that's how easily eradicated it can be by this scientific mind that we overvalue. Isn't that just amazing? That it could shut down those African shamans, that it could shut down these indigenous people that quickly. That's what's
Yeah.
happened to us.
It really shocks me, what I was thinking about the AI now. It's like, okay, mm, where are we going? People are stopping thinking by themselves. It's
Right.
just asking everything to an AI, like, what should I eat today? What is the next? I mean, it's yeah. Tara, there's something
Yes.
amazing. Well, there are so many amazing things about you and your life, but this is one I really want to know. And you did a 10-day solo vision quest in the wilderness, no human contact. That's amazing. Just that is amazing. But at what point did this part of your brain, your neocortex, go quiet and this older brain took over? And what did that feel like in your body? And what became possible that wasn't possible for you before?
Oh, I'm so happy you brought that up. Thank you so much for noticing that and for bringing it up. I did it twice. I did it
Wow.
once when I was living in California, and then when I moved to North Carolina, I knew I needed to do it again over here so I could get in touch with the land here. So I've done the 10-day vision quest all by myself twice. And, books could be written, except for they don't need to be because it's just such a quiet place. But I will say, on my first one, I was getting a PhD at the time. I was going through a divorce at the time. I had so many heartbreaking like stories going on in my life. And as soon as I went into the wilderness and sat there by about the second day, none of that mattered. I didn't even think about any human things. I was just there in the peace of nature. I was being addressed by all the remarkable, amazing things. When the hawk flew through, I knew that I could understand its meaning somehow, its purpose, its life. I was taught by my shaman to I suppose I can say this on your podcast, to pee around the circle. He said that's what the animals in the forest do to to say this is where am right now. And he said, so do that and the animals and everything won't bother you there. And so that's what I did. And there were cows that came right up to the edge of the circle, but didn't cross that invisible line and would
How
just sit
amazing
there.
is that? How amazing is that?
They
It's
would
like,
just
wow. No, it's like, wow. So our biology is still there. It's like, it's powerful.
And nature
Really.
gets it. Nature's very respectful. It's like I was under a tree there, and probably that cow or these cows like to sit under that tree because it was shady. But when I created this circle, they only came up to the edge of the invisible line that I'd created there, and they would just sit there and chew the grass and kind of look at me, but they didn't come inside my circle.
Wow.
I wasn't afraid of anything. There weren't snakes or bugs or anything. There was a little frog that moved into my watering can, and it was like my best friend. It was like my buddy. It was there all 10 days, and I
Oh,
hated leaving. I knew I couldn't take it home, but I hated leaving it. It's like we've been hanging out. It just stayed with me. Um, and there's so many magical stories that I could tell. There was a crow, and this has happened in my second one. I was trying to think, I wish there was a place I could watch the sunset where there wouldn't be humans, because the only place near there where I could watch the sunset was like a hiking destination, so I couldn't go there. I was thinking that, and a crow came across my shoulder, like practically touched me on my shoulder, and then charged through some bushes right ahead of me. And something in my psyche knew to follow it through those thick bushes. And I went following the crow, and there was a place I could watch the sunset where no
Wow.
human would go.
Wow. Wow.
So I
Wow.
went there every night. The crow just showed me.
Wow. How
Th-
amazing is it?
It was like,
This interconnection is always there. We just have to tune in. It's like they want to talk to us. I'm absolutely sure about this. It's
yes,
just we are not here, basically.
right.
We don't know where we
And
are.
it's the most natural thing, Lorena. I didn't have to do a thing except be there.
Yeah.
It's like still in us. It's in our DNA. It's in our cells. It's in our deep psyche. It's in our deep brain. And all I had to do was go there and be there with an open heart and with an open mind.
And you
And
were sleeping there also in
I
the wild
slept.
with your whatever.
The
Forget
only
it.
thing, this was remarkable to me. The first time I thought, the only thing I'm afraid of out here is humans. If a human came through, I might be threatened. But I wasn't afraid of one thing in nature, not one thing.
Wow, this is
Isn't that
different.
interesting? I kind of
This is
realized that after. It's just like humans would make me nervous,
yeah.
but nothing else in nature made me nervous at all. I just knew I was accepted there. I knew I was cared for there, that I was respected there because of the way I was there. Um,
From
And I remember at that second place where there were hiking trails back over the ways, sometimes we'd hear a hiker go by. And as soon as the hiker would go by, all of us would get quiet. The birds and the squirrels and everybody would get real quiet when the human or the dog went through, so that we could just like hunker down and didn't get bothered by the human. I didn't want to have the human contact. And then as soon as it was gone, we'd all kind of wake back up and do what we were doing. And then at some point I realized, oh, they're not thinking of me as a human. It's like I'm
you
one of
were
them. I'm one of these guys. We all hunker down and get quiet. And then when we wake back up, I'm part of them. They're not thinking of me as that anymore. Isn't that so interesting?
it's fascinating. I want to do this solo quest with you. Maybe we can be like separate, but in this, you do something like this
Yes. I mean, I
with
used to lead
your
vision quests, but if you wanted to do it where you are in Spain, I could be your partner over here, and we could call in the spirits and the forces. I mean, yeah, I mean, I would say never do something like that unless somebody is your partner. Never just go do it. Like I had friends who were very aware of me and lit candles for me and were calling in the sort of guides and spirits and protectors for me. And one who was very available, that if something happened, I could call her. She was ready to come. So one that was on alert for that. So you wouldn't want to do something. I wouldn't advise anybody to do something like this, unless you very carefully, you
yes,
know,
of course, of course.
do that. But also that you carefully prepare yourself psychologically and spiritually before
Yeah,
you go and after
yeah,
you come back, because all of that matters. You can't just jump back into your life and it'll be too disorienting. You have to
I,
kind of like really be gentle with the reincorporation of all of that.
mm.
But then you're in touch with part of yourself and part of nature that will never leave you.
No, I'm
It's
afraid if I go, I will not come back again. Uh,
You just come back more alive and more awake and more aware,
mm.
and you love more profoundly.
Wow, that's so touching. Because
Hmm.
somehow I can feel that what you're talking about and what you could have felt there. So it's moving, really. It's like, wow. Oh, so interesting.
But people can do this even if you go out for 15 minutes in the middle of the day and sit under a tree. Just
With
put down all your phones and even your journal and everything. Just be there. If you can do it 15 minutes, if you can do it an hour, it's better. If you can do it 3 hours, that's even better. But, not everybody's going to find the 10 days or even feel moved to do that quite yet. But people can get in touch with this. It doesn't require what I did. I loved what I did, and I'll never, ever value anything hardly any more than that, in terms of my own, processes. But you can do it. People can find the way. Don't worry if you just don't think you could do what we're talking about here. So,
Mm. Now I want to know everything about this. I will contact you
okay.
later, and I will have some more training on this. Okay, also some more things I want to talk about is there's a concept you talk about is domestication, the domesticated mind. I also work with this constantly, and it's this like systematic training of women to override their instinct, their know, their desire, their wildness. You call it the domesticated mind versus the indigenous mind. And from a depth psychology perspective, what has that suppression actually done for the to the feminine psyche over generations?
Well, I would say the domestication of the mind is, uh, in the way that I write about it and refer to it, is equally a male and female problem.
I
But
know.
yeah, but it does refer to the domestication mostly of the feminine side of the psyche in male and female. But it's when we have left out the values of the heart, basically, and just uh and that's where the women, come in. They're not as easily disconnected for whatever reason from the values of the heart, that taking care of it's so instinctual to take care of what's vulnerable. Uh, and, the vulnerable parts of society, the vulnerable parts of themselves, the vulnerable parts of nature. Whereas, the masculine solar consciousness is more about silencing that and dominating that so you can have strength and power and dominate. And that, this is the world we've set up. All of our economic structures, that even the structures of education are to silence that, put that down. You go as a little child to school and you're only trained to think, in this sort of directed thinking way, as Jung calls it. You think like this. Uh, Buckminster Fuller, who was one of my mentors, he was one of the great thinkers of the last century, but he said he would go to school with all of these questions and curiosities and insights and thoughts. And all he was ever told to do was shut up and listen. I don't care what you're thinking. That's the domestication of the mind. And he says it's a tragedy. He said every child is born a genius and becomes de-geniused in the process of education because you're
Wow.
shutting down all of that to domesticate the mind in the ways of, the civilization that we have created that is clearly failing. So, it's clearly not
Definitely.
working. I think to be able to think in a different way. Um, I call it dream thinking, to be able to think like the dream instead of think like the machine. The sort of the imperialist consciousness operates more like a machine. It's got parts, you put them together, they work, they break down. Um, the soul, the heart, those things are inconvenient. So shut it up. That's what happened to women when their values and their instincts they get in the way of
Mhm.
your financial prospects, when you're caring for the poor and the needy or whatever it is, even those parts of the self. So, yeah, I mean, the domestication of mind is a huge project that's been happening for a long time, and we're still doing it. We're still doing it. We're sending our kids off into an education where it's only human concerns. They're not talking about, you know, much anything else but what makes a human successful in our created social world. That's what the education is there for. We're only reading books about humans, by humans, for human values, when humans are just the tiniest, tiniest, tiniest bit of what creates a field of consciousness, and what field of consciousness we could be in touch with, the powers, the mysteries, uh, the energies, and the healing, uh, all of that. We've tried to put into this little tiny, tiny box of the rational mind in the scientific materialistic framework.
Absolutely. That's why I'm running a program. I will talk about it in some minutes because I have, yeah, in the context of what you are talking about, um, you have worked with shamans from Africa, from Native America, from South America, from Australia. In those traditions, how was the feminine held? What was the role of women in accessing and transmitting this indigenous knowledge, and what was lost when that was destroyed? I think maybe we are all talking a lot around the same issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I really like that question. I've never really thought about it exactly like that. But I remember this Nigerian shaman that I was working with. When I showed up to work with him, we worked together very intimately. I mean, very, like vigorously for about 11 months. But I showed up to work and I had on my jeans and a t-shirt or whatever. And he kind of looked and he said, "Well, when you're further along in this process, you won't be wearing clothes like that." He said uh, that women in his culture never would wear pants like that because it's like the energies of the earth need to come up into their bodies. So they would only have flowing skirts on so that earth energy would come through the feet, which were bare as much as possible, and they didn't wear like panties and jeans and things like that that would cut off their energy connection. So even the fact that I was dressed like a normal Western person was like suspect to him. It's like, "Oh, you're never going to make it, honey. You're going to have to figure out how to dress differently." So, while I worked with him, I was working in I was actually a teacher in a college, and I was working as a part-time professor in a graduate school. So I had to dress like a Western woman, but as much as I could, I tried to, but it was little things like that that he was so, that, and the women, were considered, they were the ones that gave life. He was like, "Men can't do this." When I went to Africa, it was the women who kind of ruled the whole village. And the men were like there as a support system. "Do you want me to help chop the wood and do a few things?" But it was the women who really had the power, in a beautiful way. The men were just supportive of it in every beautiful way, and important in their own right. But it was a completely different dynamic culturally and socially among them, uh, completely different. Um, the women were our teachers there. They were the ones that were showing us everything. Uh, how to plant, how to carry the water, how to cook the food, how to raise the children, how to bathe ourselves in a place that's never had plumbing and never had electricity. And, but it was all women who were doing all of that, sort of support work, and the men were just very respectful, a little more quiet. Um, and there were males and females with me, so it wasn't just because we were women that women were helping us. It was a group of several of us that were male and female, but it was, you just kind of knew who had the authority in that village, um, and how accepted it was. So it was a whole different cultural dynamic. And I think the female shamans, they carry a different kind of medicine than the male shamans, and both of them are valued in their own, like, unique and very specific ways. But yeah, I remember that Nigerian man talking about his wife giving birth and just saying, these are goddesses, they birth life. This is all we need to know about who's really got the power here.
Mm. Wow. Wow. That's so powerful, Tayria.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. It is, in fact. And
Mm-hmm.
and they want to also get out that power from us, from our bodies.
Yeah, there's a lot of medical intervention in the birthing
That's it. In the
process that
birthing
takes
process.
that
Yeah, that's
takes
it.
it away from women.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one woman, Western woman, telling me that she had some kind of whatever the procedure was, I don't know the name of it, where it numbed all that. So her body was going through the contractions, but she wasn't feeling any of it. She said she was like skipping through channels on the TV up while her body was doing this whole thing. And then the baby came out. She lost the power of that rite of passage, of who she is as a woman, of any of those people understanding what a woman. I mean, I was so sad and horrified to hear that that's how she gave birth. It's a uh it's
Yeah.
and that's what this Nigerian man said, that these doctors are trying to take the power away from women because women awaken to their power
Yes.
when they give birth in a natural way.
Yeah, it's terrific. Teria, you've been recording your dreams for 50 years or
Mhm.
more, maybe.
Yes.
Has your relationship to your own instincts, to your desire, to your know, to your body's intelligence changed as a result of that?
1,000%. You know, uh, it's changed everything. My dreams are always sort of turning my psyche back to what matters. When I'm busy over here doing all these things, the dreams are consistently refocusing, readjusting what's really going on. It's like my own psyche is awakening here. It isn't this, and this, the problems. Those are things I need to deal with, pay that bill, do that thing. But what is really going on energetically and archetypally and through the, energies of the planets and everything else is what my dreams are always focusing on. The ultimate sort of like thing to be remembered and in touch with. The dreams are always bringing us back to that. As Jung says, dreams are raw nature. They're always bringing us back to our own nature. They don't let you get away with straying too far from it if you're listening to them. And I've conducted my life that way. I mean, I can't even tell you, like, dreams guided me out of Los Angeles, where I had a job in a college and a job in a graduate school, and I'd been there for 30 years. I raised my family there. I was actually getting a pretty good reputation professionally and so forth. And I started having these dreams about moving to the mountains in North Carolina. And I can't tell you that I could tell you 15 dreams that were just so amazing, but it's like they made it so impossible for me. So I quit my jobs. I left my 30 years of contacts. And I moved out to the mountains of North Carolina so I could live in the wilderness by myself for 9 years. Um, I didn't know at the time how long that would be. I thought it would be for the rest of my life, actually. I just wanted to live in the wilderness, not in this urban environment. It just wasn't, my soul and my psyche wasn't going to thrive there anymore. And I knew it, and my dreams were telling me. But I would have never made that move. Everybody thought it was like, what are you doing?
I can
So,
imagine. How did you know it was North Carolina?
Well, it's because I came to a conference out here. I just happened to come to a conference where some of the speakers that I were at this conference were people that I was quoting in my dissertation work. I was writing a dissertation, and I thought I should go hear these people. And they happened to be at a conference out here. So then I found out about these mountains. I met a few people here. And then the mountains started showing up in my dream, kind of like glowing red. And then these eagles started showing up in my dreams and leading me into the mountains. I had, it was like dream after dream after dream. I should write all those dreams down really in their own little chapter somewhere.
Yeah, I think you
They-
should write like 10 books.
yeah, right. Yeah. I kind of have all that to do still. I got to live to be 100 so I can do that. Anyway, so yeah, and then I just wanted to start a retreat center out here so I could bring people into the wilderness. Because I was talking about the indigenous mind sitting right next to the 405 freeway in Los Angeles, so people were on their phones and doing their things and getting in their cars, and they could think for 15 minutes or an hour during our class about what I was talking about, but then they were back in it. So I just wanted to immerse people in nature like I had done. And I thought, this is the only way we're going to awaken it. And so I knew I had to get out of LA and come into the mountains here. And I knew I wanted to immerse myself in it. That was the only way that I was going to really awaken what I intended to become awake to, was by living in nature alone. So then I had retreats. I brought people into it. We did dream work every morning, did vision quests. I had a sweat lodge. We had these beautiful retreats, but then the rest of the time I was just alone out there. And in touch, like I was talking about in my vision quests, that was my life, that I was in touch in these ways with the stars and the wind and the fragrances and the land and the gardens and the you know uh and the people on the mountain who lived in that way. It was like, I thought, these are the last indigenous people, in the United States, is these mountain people. They are just totally indigenous, really in touch with the land. I learned so much from them. They're so
Yeah.
wonderful.
Wow. I would
Yeah.
love so much to be there, you know.
Yeah. Well, you got to come visit. I'm in
I know,
Asheville now, so I'm in an urban environment now, not like Los Angeles, but I brought it with me.
I know, I know, I know. We talk about it in Egypt. And Tyra, you also now I think you're still doing this. You facilitate a global dream symposium
Yes,
every month.
every month.
I'm not sure every month. Wow, it's quite a lot. And what happens when a group shares their dreams collectively? Have you ever seen the dreams of strangers converge around the same symbols or themes at the same moment in history? Yeah, right.
All the time, all the time.
And
So,
maybe, sorry, maybe you could perhaps talk a little bit about the dream work we did in our amazing trip in Egypt, because I think it's quite the same, right? And how the symbols that appeared kept repeating across the different people in the group and were symbols that belonged to the collective unconscious of the group. It was so amazing.
right. Okay, so let me just say briefly about the Dream Symposium so they sort of, you can kind of get the idea of what we did in Egypt together. But in the Dream Symposium, we started, Jocelyn Starfeather and myself started the Dream Symposium in 2017, in February of 2017. And we've been doing one every month since then. So that's going to be 10 years in this coming February. So, yeah. And we have people come from all over the world and tell their dreams. And this is what the indigenous people always do still to this day, listen to the dreams of the village. And then they know what's really going on, basically. That's what they've always done. And that's why we created this, so we could listen to people's dreams and then get the sort of the coherent messages, or they're just, even if they're don't match each other, they're like pieces in a puzzle. There's this and there's this and there's this and there's this, and that's what the dream time is telling us now. And it's for the collective. It's for the collective dreaming mind. We don't do personal analysis. I do that privately with clients all the time. I do the personal aspect of your dreams, but in this setting, we just are listening to what the dreams have for the whole community. So that's what we did, our little group in Egypt. It was so lovely. And I would listen to the dreams of people that, that shared them with me during the day. And then at some point during the evening, when we were returning from the temples or whatever, I would give a little podcast, as we called it, and tell the different symbols that were coming up in people's dreams, the different stories and symbols. And I'm sure you remember, Lorena, it was like there were so many themes that kept coming up. Like, for example, you had one of these dreams of losing your purse and your identity. And so many people had that dream. And it was like a lot of people were realizing that there's a shifting in identity that's happening to all of us here. We're just understanding ourselves differently, and we're kind of losing this old idea of ourselves, and we can't get back in touch with it because things are changing. And so that's kept coming up in people's dreams. And I think it was telling all of us, kind of let go of the old identity. It's happening anyway. So just get on board with this. There were lots of dreams about portals, about people going through portals or coming through portals, or there were dreams about keys, like unlocking, the ancient mysteries, the ancient, whatever we were unlocking in our psyche or in the world soul. There were lots of dreams about keys. I can't remember right now, but there were so many themes that were just coherent through our whole group. Um,
And also the water and the ocean and all this, the unconscious realm, no? The unconscious emotional realm, maybe? Not sure if.
there were a lot of water dreams, and we were getting in touch with the consciousness of water. We were praying with water,
Yeah.
becoming aware of water as conscious, and how it supports us and how we can be in touch with it in a completely other way that
Mm.
doesn't just marginalize it as a dead matter kind of thing. So there were a lot of dreams that were asking us to awaken up to that aspect of water. Um, there were dreams about crossing waters, like this is a ritual where you're going from one shore to the next shore. There were dreams of those kinds. Um, yeah. And so it's a really good thing to be in touch with each other's dreams because they help you amplify your own. Like I was saying,
Yeah.
I got up with that morning just yesterday, I think it was, with the dream of all being with women. And I didn't think that much about it until I heard my friend's dream about women. And my other friend was reading about the shaman who's talking about all about women. And then these news stories that are talking about all about women. And then I realized, oh, this women thing and now today I'm on this podcast with you asking, these questions that we're asking together about what had happened to women. So it's all
Yes.
part of the same theme. And that's what I woke up with yesterday. It's like, you start to
Yeah.
get that it's bigger than just our little dream. It's a bigger field
Absolutely.
of consciousness that we enter there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to talk to you about that, and also these archetypes, this segment, Isis, Hathor, Kali, the Black Madonna. These archetypes carry both fierce destruction and deep healing. And when women connect to those archetypes in dream work, what actually happens? It happens things, right? Why does the psyche need the fierce feminine, not just the nurturing one?
Well, oh my gosh, that's such a beautiful question. I wish I could show you a picture that I have above my bed here. It's a picture of a mother polar bear, beautiful big white bear that's kind of looking into the camera like this. Huge bear looking into the camera like this, and at her feet is this tiny little baby uh, that's sleeping. So there's the mom looking into the camera like this, very calm. But if you try to touch that baby, you will die. She's not looking threateningly at the camera. She's looking at the camera, but you absolutely know instinctually she is a protector of this baby, and you don't mess with that baby. And I think that's who Sekhmet is. That's who Hathor is. That's who Kali is. It's like, here we are. we're going to be as calm as we can be, but don't mess with the innocence.
Mm,
Do not mess with the innocence.
mm.
And it's like that face of the goddess who just, she's going to protect what she's going to protect. And you don't want to mess with that. You
No,
really don't.
no, you don't. You know, I'm having Kali in front of me. I'm just like watching at her from the corner of my eye, and it's like she's glowing. It's like, you are not.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah. So, and that's the
You,
kind of, and let me tell you this, it's cute. That poster that's above my bed that I just described, my daughter, my youngest daughter, had that on her wall in her bedroom at home when she was growing up. And when she was really tiny, she would say, "That's you and me, Mama. That's you and me."
oh,
That's why it's
oh,
above my bed, because it has that memory of, "That's you and me, Mama."
oh, wow, that's so sweet and also so
And it was a
powerful.
few years before I realized, oh, but it's also the goddess. That's who the
Yeah.
goddess is, you know?
That's the feminine. I mean, is
Right.
the dark feminine is that.
Yeah.
For me, you know, I have a program. I wanted to talk to you about it. An online program. I did the first edition in past September, from
Uh-huh.
September to December, and now I'm going to do like a second edition. And this program is called Feral. You know, Feral?
Ooh,
Yeah. And it's the premise that something primal, instinctual, ungovernable in women was systematically trained out of us, and we
yes,
need to reclaim it. And when I say feral, when I say this word to you, what do you feel? You feel like that mama bear?
exactly. I mean, now that we've told that story, that's the first, certainly the first thing that comes to mind is that bear that's, that's feral nature. And that's what you know not to mess with. Um, and that's the older brain, that's the limbic, system, that's that our feral nature is going to protect the innocence. You want to be careful with that. You
And
want to be
also us, and I see so many, because I work almost with women, and I see so many women who are like disconnected from this dark side of the feminine, this the goddess, and this feral instinct, and it's just in the people pleasing kind of phoning and all this kind of, yeah, but because they lost that part of them. And this program is to reconnect with the part of our body, with which we needed to be here, because this is like a this is it's like a walk, really. It's like the wilderness, and you have to be in contact with all your power and your instincts and this ancestral intelligence that you're talking about all the time. So how do we recover that?
how do we recover that? I absolutely love that question. Let me see, what comes to mind now again for some reason is just what we were talking about, birthing. It's like not being afraid of the blood and the pain and the gore of birthing, but what's the purpose of it? The purpose of it is to give life. But it's that woman who, after she's given birth, doesn't remember any of that blood and pain and screaming and terror. It's like that is a distant memory because of what she has here. So it's like being willing to be initiated into your power. And the birthing is just one sort of image for that. But there are ways that life abducts us into these profound initiations. Um, and it's painful and it's terrifying sometimes. And it's disorienting hugely. And um, and it's giving birth. I mean, life will bring you along into these initiations, and uh, if you embrace the potential and the possibility rather than avoid it, For me, resigning from the ministry was one of those initiations. It was wild, it was painful, it was horrible. I lost a whole community of people. I lost, their faith in me because of what they thought I should be and needed to be, and I had to become myself, and that was really, really, really hard. And then, divorce was another one of those that was just so painful. But, it's like the universe is going to give us these things, but if we hold the meaning and the potential and the possibility of what it's birthing in us, then we can get in touch with that nature that has to go through these things. It's that feral nature that is finding her voice again. And if I'd
That's the point.
stayed in that little ministry because I wasn't willing to go through that, or if I'd submitted myself to a situation that wasn't good, I had to really awaken the part of me that was willing to go through the birthing. So I think that's partly the answer, is just being willing to go through sometimes the bloody chaos of it all, right? Psychologically bloody chaos. I don't mean physically necessarily, hopefully not, but and then recognize it as, an invitation, a
Absolutely.
calling,
To be more of yourself, right? To be who
right,
you came to be.
right,
Who you
exactly,
came to be. And, and,
right.
and and I think, I don't know what you think about, but I think we are dying. If you are in this path of the sacred awakening, you are dying and rebirthing like every month. Uh, It's, it's crazy. But
It
it's
is.
gonna be like this for the rest of your life. There will be moments that will be more smooth, but yeah, it's the path of awakening is awakening.
Right. Yeah, it's so interesting you know, as you're talking about those monthly things that happen to women, and it's often during that week of her, bleeding where she's more feral. She's not to be messed with. She's not going to domesticate herself in the same way. You just can't for whatever reason. It's like those hormones and those energies just aren't going to allow for it. And so everybody's needs to just sort of get in line with that. It's like uh including yourself, that there are these big energies, and that's part of the birthing. It's interesting that it's part of her birthing capacity that brings these initiations on, and it really needs to be respected and embraced. Yeah.
Oh. Ooh, I think I will need like 3 hours to integrate all the fields we touch this.
Oh, how beautiful.
Because we open so many, yeah, different spaces. And I want to ask you the last question because I think is,
Okay.
we've been like touching a lot of things. Um, I think this is the most personal one.
Okay. Oh, good.
Is there a moment in your own life when your wild indigenous self saved you?
Ooh, gosh, you are the best, Lorena. I love your questions. I'm going to listen to this back and write down all the questions you asked me and spend
Yes,
much more
please.
time with those questions because these are good questions.
I did
Okay.
my work,
When my wild indigenous self saved me, you know what comes to mind? This is so wild, and I don't know why this, of all the things, comes to mind, but I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah.
It was a moment when I discovered that I'd been lied to by my ex-husband and my best friend for a very long time. And I had no idea, no clue, couldn't have imagined. It was utterly unthinkable, unimaginable to me. And then in one moment, I found out. And it was like I received enlightenment. It was like I was a Sybil. I started saying, "You don't know what you've been involved in." And I saw it all. I saw absolutely the deep psychological impact of all these things and all of the motivations that were hidden. And everything that I said then, I was like this Sybil that was coming out. I was so full of this wisdom and understanding. And I played it back to myself later, and over the years I saw, wait a minute, there was there were there was no way I could have should have known that. But it all came out in this wild way. It's when we allow ourselves, or we, go into the impact of something that is crushing to the old identity, that the new identity is just like bursts forth. So you have to go through those. And that was wild. That was just wild. I mean, I amazed myself. I amazed my dear husband, who at the time was like, what? And it was, and like I said, over the years, I remembered all the things that were so clear to me then. And they shouldn't have been clear to me. They just were. It's like we have this knowing, we have this wisdom. Um, and so it's like when the universe gives you a shock or sudden sort of knowledge, that was my wild indigenous self. I don't even know who she was. She resurrected so high then and had a voice, and she was not deceived, and she understood. And I wasn't angry. I just knew. I just understood. So, and I think, I think it comes upon us by, like, in the Christian tradition, you'd say the Holy Ghost. It's just like the Holy Ghost descends. You just go with it. You understand it. But it's in those moments of just shifting realities and shifting identities. And that will happen, when a bomb drops. I just hate to say, things like that. It's just like, wait a minute, what do we all wake up to now? What
Mm,
do we wake up to now? And that's what it was for me. It was a bomb dropping on my entire life. But what do we wake up to now? And how do we work with the intelligence that is born out of this really powerful shift? So hopefully it doesn't require, you know, divorce and bombs and all those things. Life can give it to you just in a moment that is very survivable. But when the Holy Ghost descends, if we're using that word or that term, go with it, trust it. It's wild. It is
yes,
wild.
yes.
So I don't know why that came to mind, but that's what came to mind when you asked that question.
Yeah, and I had a quite similar experience because we shared it when we were in Egypt. And the
Uh-huh.
day I discovered the partner I had in that time, he was having like a second life with another woman. I heard it. I heard a voice. I heard a voice that was saying, "Go there and look for this," and it was guiding me to look into some documents so I could like uh, affirm it was true. And for many years, I was sure it was like the voice of whatever some, and I think it was myself.
Yes, right. That's a really good way to say it. It's the
Yeah,
self. I'm
yeah,
calling it the Holy Ghost, but I think that's what the self is. It's the
yeah.
divine
That
feminine.
that's what that wild part of you that is like trying to shout in your face, like, okay, stop being so.
Yeah, I remember that story. You had the same thing. You just like some kind of transpersonal, super conscious part of yourself just kicked in and knew exactly what to do.
Yeah,
Um, and you
that
you
turning
can't
point.
make that stuff up. It's just like,
No,
wow.
no, you can't. It's like, no, no, you can't do this.
Right.
Not possible anymore. No.
And so any of us who go through shocks, we need to remember these stories, that there's a purpose, there's a point, there's a way to live into it uh, that is constructive and creative, even though it doesn't take away the pain and the disappointment and the heartbreak. It doesn't. But it gives a whole different meaning and purpose to what you're invited into, just like birthing.
Absolutely, it's an initiation. In fact, it's
Yeah,
like a rite of passage
right. Yeah.
to a, another version of you that is more aligned with who you really are and is your truth. My dear,
I have just loved this time with you. Like I said, you asked the best questions. Just the best questions.
I'm
I had
so
no
happy.
idea.
I'm so happy for this. I came into this conversation already moved by your work, by you. You are so inspiring for me, and I just want to say thank you. And what you carry, the depth, the courage, the decades of listening, the wisdom is a gift to everyone who is trying to find their way back to themselves. So to their instinct, to that ancient and vast intelligence that never left, because the truth is it never left. So thank you so much for saying yes to Egypt so I could meet you.
Right.
Thank you for saying yes to this time with me, and thank you for being a living proof that the wild self not only survives but leads. So thank you very
Leads.
much, Tayria.
Perfect. Oh, what a complete honor and delight to be with you, Lorena. I have such respect and appreciation for you and your work and for everything that we've shared. So I just am so grateful. And like I said, I'm going to be thinking about the questions you asked me for a long time. They're kind of never-ending questions. They're beautiful. They're just getting me started. Yeah.
I will send them to you.
Okay, do. Yeah, I'm going to
I
do
will.
some meditation with those. Those are really, really good. So, yeah,
Thank you
all
very much.
blessings to your listeners too, to those who listen. We just ask that you really thrive
And
and
also, before we close, very important for those um, women, men watching who feel something has awakened in them, in them, in their body, who want to go deeper with you and with your work. Where can they find you, and what do you have for them?
well, I'm always doing something, like what we're doing today. I often do these kinds of things. I'm teaching a class that's starting. I don't know when this is going to air, but my class is starting on May 5th or 3rd, I think. And you can find out about it by going to my website, www.tayriaward.com, and getting on my mailing list. Uh, so if you go to my website on the front page, you can sign up for my mailing list. And I can give you a link to put with this that where they can sign up for my mailing list, and they'll also get another podcast that I love to share that comes with that sort of sign up sheet. So yeah.
Yeah, we will leave everything, the info from your webpage, and from your next class and everything. We will leave it down here in the copy of the podcast, so it's
Okay.
gonna be easy for them to find you. And yeah, again, thank you so much. Um, I know, people are going to ask for a second part of this podcast.
Oh, I'd
You
show up with
still have
you
so
any
much to
day.
share.
Aw, I
To
would
share.
I would be thrilled to talk to you absolutely any time for any reason. So
Thank you so much, Tyra. See
thank
you
you.
very soon.
Okay. Bye.
Y hasta aquí el episodio de hoy. ¿Cómo lo ha recibido tu cuerpo? Observa qué sensaciones están presentes, qué se ha validado dentro de ti, qué verdad has descubierto y cómo te sientes ahora. Quiero darte las gracias por acompañarme y si te ha gustado no olvides suscribirte y dejarme 5 estrellitas. Aquí manda el algoritmo y tu apoyo me ayuda muchísimo a llevar este mensaje a más personas, a expandir este canal, a expandir este podcast y seguir caminando juntos en este fascinante viaje de regreso a nosotros mismos. Si crees que puede resonar con alguien cercano, compártelo y ayúdame a expandir esta red de autenticidad y de transformación. Te mando mucho amor. Vamos juntas.